Hey, what's up everyone, and welcome to my review for Defiance, the video game. Yes, that is right, I'm doing a live review for this video game, which is a game I didn't think I was actually going to have the time to talk about, because if you do not know, it's an MMO. I'm very busy, recently, and it takes a lot of time to, play a demo, and I'd play an MMO and then, of course, review it. So what I decided to do, I'm going to do a movie style review for this video game. It might be a little long, seeing that it is an MMO and I'll have to talk about it a lot, but you know what? Yeah, whatever. Just deal with it. So, before I get into that, of course, this is an MMO. This is a console MMO. I'm not a big MMO guy, so that's another reason why I want to do a live review, because I don't really know how to compare this to any other MMO. This is like pretty much the first MMO I've ever played where I actually got into it. Besides, I played Terra, which came out like last year or the year before that, and I played the DC Universe game, but I never got into them. This is the first one where I really got into it. So I can't compare this to many titles like many reviewers can, so that's why I'm just going to do a live review. That, and also because I wasn't even going to get to it anyway. Also, the TV show premieres tonight, so perfect timing. So, let's get into it. I shouldn't say straight into it, it's already been like 2 minutes. But let's get into it with the story of Defiance the video game. The story for Defiance the video game follows you as the Ark Hunter, who can either be a male or a female. I picked female because why not? And they pretty much are mercenaries. You are hired by a man named Von Bach, who is like, I guess, the head of some major company in the future. I don't know, because this is set on the future. Earth doesn't look very good. There's been a bunch of wars, aliens, mutants running around. It's pretty much post-apocalyptic Earth. And you have to go and do a bunch of missions for him. But throughout the story, you meet a bunch of different characters. Some of them are from the show, some of them from just this game in general. And the story itself is pretty much trying to lead into the story of Defiance the video game. Defiance the TV show. So that's really the story. Your character doesn't speak, he doesn't have a personality, she doesn't have a personality if you pick female like me. Really, your character's just there so you can play as someone and go around and shoot a bunch of stuff and not interfere with the story of the TV show, because if there was some really badass Ark Hunter that was killing everything, then you would hear about it in the TV show, but you don't. So, yeah. Overall, the story here is very lackluster. It really is. You don't have many characters you care about, and sure, you might have some cool ones, but they show up for a quick second. Obviously, those ones are just like, hey, I'm a cameo because I'm from the TV show. Watch it on Mondays. So, yeah, it's a very bare bones story. You don't really care for many characters. It's not all that interesting, to be honest. So, yeah, sadly it's not all that great. But now let's talk about the sound and the graphics in one go so we can get straight into the gameplay. Sound design is good. Gunplay, vehicles, explosions, all that. It sounds good, even though it does skip here and there because, there's a lot of stuff going on at times. So, the audio skips a beat here and there. But it does sound good, especially when you hear a lot of people just, a bunch of enemies, a bunch of players all together shooting at one thing. It skips sometimes, but it does sound really good. It doesn't get too much. The sound design does a good job of making everything sound somewhat different. Also, soundtrack, while not great, comes in at the right moments, and it's good for the most part. Voice acting is a mixed bag because there's some really bad voice acting, but there's actually some really good voice acting, mostly from the main characters. And I have to blame the script for the most part because the dialogue is not very good, even from the good voice actors. Just straight up, the dialogue is not very good. So yeah, overall, sound is a mixed bag, but I will say it's more good than bad. But now let's talk about the graphics. And Defiance, if it was a single player game only, this would be an incredibly ugly game. There would be no excuse for this game to be this ugly. But seeing that it's an MMO, I had to give it credit, especially since there could be up to 30 people on screen at once. And even though it does lag at times, it's not that terrible, especially for an MMO console game. That was very surprising. So, there's a lot of muddy textures, character models don't look great, the lip syncing is really bad, animations aren't great either, the environments are big, and there's a lot of creatures and a lot of different enemies you can fight, but you'll see them over and over again, the same character models over and over again. But again, the world is big, there is some cool little vistas that you'll see, but there's also a lot of popping. Again, it's an MMO, you should expect it not to look amazing, but there is a lot of amazing looking MMOs out there, but not every MMO can look like Guild Wars 2. But overall, graphics wise, meh. And of course, the most important part of any game, especially an MMO, is the gameplay. And Defiance is a third-person shooter, and you do get a lot of different guns in this game. Most of them are typical stuff. You get, pistols, shotguns, submachine guns, light machine guns, all those types. But you also get some cool little alien or mutant guns, whatever you want to call them, which are kind of cool to use. The third-person shooting itself is actually pretty damn good. It's a nice game just if you want to go in and shoot a lot of enemies. And it does feel good. It's not, it doesn't get too repetitive after a couple hours. It is a lot of fun just to go around and shoot a bunch of enemies, get a bunch of loot, and get a bunch of items and money so you can go buy more stuff. It is actually very entertaining, especially when you get the loot, which I will have to say this. Loot isn't too isn't too abundant. Like, you won't get abundance of loot in this game, which I actually really enjoyed, because if you get too much loot, you'll be like, oh my god, I have to empty this out and get more loot. Oh my god, more loot. You'll be spending most of this game just getting loot, and I like that you won't get too much loot in the game. Of course, the loot is like more guns and shields and grenades and stuff, if you don't know. The world itself is actually really big. You can encounter a bunch of different players in the game, and you can actually ask them if you want to, group with them, or you can actually just chat with a bunch of people that are playing along with you. But you can actually group with people, which I actually really thought was cool. I grouped with a couple people. Didn't really talk to them, but we went on, did some missions, and I thought that was a lot of fun. Now, talk about the missions. There's a lot of side missions you will get in this game, and a lot of main missions, and even episode missions, which of course is based around the TV show, which I thought was cool. And there's a lot of missions you get, a lot of side missions. The thing is that the missions get really repetitive, because they're pretty much the same thing over and over again. Go here, press the X button on this thing, press the X button on that thing, like a generator, or collecting samples of something, or go here, kill all these enemies, go here, kill all these enemies. It's very, very repetitive. Thing is that doing these side missions grants money and different mods for your weapons, so you can go and add different scopes or different damage modifications to your weapons, and that's still fun to get. The thing is that the missions are very repetitive. Even the main missions are kind of repetitive, kind of the same way too. To traverse this world, you actually get an ATV in the beginning of the game. Later on, you actually get this big, nice looking armored car which you can use to run over people too. But in the beginning, you get an ATV, and you could go around. You can fast travel to specific parts, but I actually recommend just traveling around with your ATV, because you'll see a lot of different things. You'll see a lot of random encounters, so you can get more XP and build upon your character, and of course get more loot and do more side missions. So I actually recommend just traveling around. Even though it might get a little boring, you'll find some random things, and you'll be like, wow, I got some cool loot. And talking about random encounters, one of the biggest features of this game is called arc drops, where of course you're an arc hunter, you want to go get some arc tech. So there's these big crystal-like things that just drop from the sky onto Earth, and you can go and pretty much destroy these crystals or fight a big monster with a bunch of other players and get a bunch of experience and some loot and some money. And you can do that, go there, it's random encounters, you don't need to do it. There's always going to be a arc drop pretty much every, I don't know, like every 20 minutes you'll find a new one, and you can go and get a lot of XP. It takes a long time. Sometimes they get repetitive too, because all you're doing is shooting like a specific part of an arc weakness or something like that, or you're fighting a big bug or something like that. It's repetitive too, but again, it's fun to get loot. It's fun to go and play with a bunch of friends or people you don't even know too. It's really actually entertaining just to see a bunch of people shooting at the same thing over and over again, just seeing that thing blow up. It's actually very entertaining. So while this game is very repetitive, it really is. It has a lot going for it. A huge open world that is actually kind of interesting, even though the story isn't. A lot of missions, a lot of different loot that's a lot of fun to use. Again, the missions are repetitive. That's the main word here to use, repetitive. But if you're playing with friends or you're playing with a bunch of random people, you won't think that, because you're just having fun. You're just palling around, having a good time. You're not gonna think that. You're just gonna be like, wow, this is a fun MMO for consoles. Many people, if you've played Guild Wars 2 or even World of Warcraft, or I don't know, anything else that's really good, you might think this is mediocre, but for me, I think this is a fun time. I'm going to keep coming back to this game, seeing what's different throughout the weeks of the show being out, because there's always going to be something different there. So I'm definitely going to go back and play. It has a lot of replay value. I already played it for about 25 hours, so it is a very enjoyable time. There you go. There's my review. I thought Defiance was a very good game. I don't care what anybody says. I don't care. I mean, sure, graphics, sound, even story, meh, but the gameplay is a lot of fun. So there you go. There's my review. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you, and goodbye.